cooking it.
Trek Geeks is proud to have Fansets as its presenting sponsor. Fansets is the place for amazing pin collectibles, with over 200 officially licensed Star Trek pins and new releases every month. Stay tuned for a special discount code good on your next order at fansets.com just for Trek Geeks listeners. Fansets. Our pins have character.
Hi, this is Andy Robinson, Elam Garrick on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and you are listening to the biggest little podcast this side of the Gamma Quadrant. It's the Trek Geeks Podcast with Dan Davidson and Bill Smith. Failure to tune in would not sit well with the Obsidian Order.
From a secret Maquis base just outside the Badlands. It's the biggest little show this side of the Alpha Quadrant and the flagship of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Trek Geeks Podcast and episode number 212. I'm your co-host, Bill Smith. Thank you so much for joining us and downloading. We know you all have a whole lot on your minds going on in the world right now, so we're hoping to just provide you a little bit of distraction and talking about Star Trek because we love it, you love it, and that's why we're here. Speaking of we, I would like to introduce my illustrious co-host, without whom this show would not be possible. He's the lovely and talented Dan Davidson. And Dan, I hope this time finds both you and your lovely bride both safe and sane as we sort of ride out this sort of global pandemic.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Same to you and your wife. Yeah, things are going good. Hanging in there. We spend every moment together, which is what we like to do more than anything else, so I really can't complain, even though we don't say anything to each other for hours at a time because I'm on my laptop working and she's on her laptop working over there.
Yes.
Every once in a while, I'll just like Tourette something out of my mouth because that's how I do things when I work, and she'll just kind of look at me funny, and then we'll just go and work some more. So it's going well. It's good to be here, though. I always like talking Star Trek with you, man.
That is exactly what happens in the Smith house, by the way. That very same thing. Every now and then we change rooms if one of us has to get on a conference call. So if she needs to get on a conference call, I'll find a different room.
Yep.
And I'll go work for a while. But other than that, it's usually silence, and then an expletive.
That's it. That's it.
No,
but I will say the expletive is always from me because in all of the years that my wife and I have been together, I haven't heard her swear once. She doesn't.
I'm amazed you haven't driven her to swear.
When she's by herself, she probably swears at me a whole lot, but I don't hear that.
It's probably best that way. It's probably best. No, it's good to hear that you guys are riding the whole situation out as we are doing, as we hope everyone out there is doing. That's really all the Rona talk we're going to get into for the episode, because we want to talk about things that make us happy and things that we love, and that's Star Trek, buddy. And today we have a great conversation topic, a character that we've developed a huge appreciation for in the last few years.
Absolutely. I would say that the appreciation has certainly grown leaps and bounds. I think neither one of us really appreciated this character when we first watched the show, when it debuted. Oh my goodness, over 25 years ago, as we continue to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Voyager. Today we are going to deep dive into a character who only needs one name, doesn't need numbers, doesn't need a rank. He's just Chakotay.
Akuchimoya.
And you're going to hear that every single time the word Chakotay
Akuchimoya
is spoken during this entire episode. Yes, everyone's favorite first officer, at least I think you voted him your favorite first officer when we did the show
Thunderdome.
a few years back. Yeah, so this ought to be a great discussion because there is a lot to talk about the famous tattooed first officer of the USS Voyager.
I said he was the best of the first officers because I think he came the closest to meeting the criteria that we set out, especially in executing the captain's vision, Spock didn't always necessarily do that. Although Spock was a fine first officer, they all were. I mean, let's be honest. I think that Chakotay was closest to the mark of what you would hope for in a prototypical Starfleet first officer, even though he was technically not. He was a Maquis.
Did we ever have Will Decker in our list for Thunderdome? I just thought of that.
No.
Wow.
Well, because he was captain of the Enterprise and then was demoted just for that Voyager mission.
That's awesome.
Decker unit.
Decker unit.
No, I know. It's Kirk unit. Please don't send emails. That's an inside joke between Dan and me.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
So, Dan, because people may have some more time on their hands or may want to maybe give us some feedback, how might they route us their comments, suggestions, questions, or other good wishes?
Well, it's real easy. If you're looking to get in touch with us, you can head right on over to trekgeeks.com/contact, and there you will find a multitude of ways to communicate with us. Let's see, there's Skype chat, there's email. I don't think anybody's actually ever used Skype chat yet, so somebody should do that. There's even voicemail by way of that big blue button using SpeakPipe. Whatever way you want to contact us, just make it so, because we do love hearing from everyone. Plus, there's also the most positive Star Trek group on Facebook. It's called Camp Kittimer. It is our official group, and it's where over 1,600 other friends gather to talk all things Trek. It's always positive, and no bashing or gatekeeping is ever allowed. To join the group, just head on over to facebook.com/groups/Camp Kittimer and be ready to be part of a truly wonderful social experience. And as always, we want to thank our wonderful admins, Haley, Jackie, Sarah, and Dan, for the amazing job they do running the camp. And also, Bill, 100-100-110-110-110-110-110. I watched the Binar episode the other day.
Let me translate that.
Yes,
please remember that any comments or messages you may send us could be used in a future episode of Trek Geeks. Now back to you, Bill.
Oh, whoops, sorry. 100001.
Oh, perfect.
Sorry about that.
So we do have a special message for those of you that have already purchased tickets to Trek Geeks Live, our stage show, which was supposed to happen originally on April 26th in downtown Concord, New Hampshire, and has now been officially postponed to October 25th of this year, 2020. For those of you who've already bought tickets, please go to trekgeekslive.com and let the Bank of New Hampshire stage know what you're going to do with your tickets. Part of the issue with them having to reschedule shows is they've had to reschedule everything.
Yeah.
They have done an insane amount of work these last few weeks to reschedule shows, to open spots in their calendar further on in the year. And they'd like to get at least an accurate count of what seats will still be available for October. So if you've had tickets, go to trekgeekslive.com and select one of the 4 options there on the webpage. And they are keep my tickets, if you still intend to go to the show, donate, gift card, or refund. Those are your 4 options. You can choose to do one of those 4 things. You can keep your tickets, you can donate them, you can get a gift card to use for another Bank of New Hampshire stage show, or you can get your money back, depending on whether or not you can make the new date. So this is all to help them get an accurate count for their ticket system and to help ease the burden on their part as far as rescheduling shows. So again, if you've purchased tickets, please go to trekgeekslive.com and let the venue know your preference. And for those of you who are going, Dan and I look forward to seeing you on Sunday, October 25th, 2020 at 8 p.m. where we talk about why Star Trek matters.
And don't you think it matters even more now that we're going to be shut in for so many months?
You know, it's interesting because as I've been putting together the program for that night, I've been thinking about having to add this event to why Star Trek matters, because this has provided a huge distraction, not only for you and for me, but for everybody listening and then everybody watching Picard or going back and doing rewatches like we did with our themed rewatches last week. So I think it's been elemental in just in keeping our mental sanity. And I think that truly is another reason why Star Trek matters.
And I'd like to add one more thing to it. Anybody who has not watched The Ready Room with Will Wheaton, he had the actress who plays Dr. Girardi, Alison Pill, and Sir Patrick Stewart on his final episode of the season. And Sir Patrick Stewart said literally that Star Trek matters now more than ever. Coming from the man, Sir Patrick Stewart, that speaks volumes.
Dan, it's time for the news from TrekNews.net. Spanning the Alpha Quadrant. For all the news on all the Star Treks, yo. It's TrekNews.net. I can't wait to see what the levels look like in the audio editing program.
I've been listening to a lot of AC/DC lately.
I don't know how I'm going to compensate for that. Because it's probably going to sound like somebody's ears are splitting.
Sorry.
Like mine just did. Online at TrekNews.net. At first, I thought you sounded like you were calving. I thought you were delivering birth to a baby cow.
It has happened.
I've seen him do it. Dan, first up, as the world continues to change really before our eyes due to the coronavirus pandemic, we're starting to see several conventions be affected from everything that's going on.
Yeah, sadly we are, man. I know that recently the Nichelle Nichols Farewell Convention was postponed from May to a reportedly sometime in July. And as a result, you actually had to cancel your plans to attend that convention. And most recently, Destination Star Trek Germany announced that the annual event scheduled for May 1st will have to be postponed until October 9th through 11th of 2020. Now, this convention had already been rescheduled from May 8th due to unrelated reasons to the coronavirus, but now it's been pushed much farther out into the year. Of course, Bill, many people, you and I included, are concerned as to what's going to happen with STLV, with what's happening these days. We have not heard anything from Creation as of yet, and we'll be sure to let listeners know if we hear anything about the convention, which is still scheduled for August 5th through the 9th. You know, the con is still 120, 130 days away at this point, so we're hoping for the best so we can gather with our Star Trek family in the Las Vegas desert. And on a side note, to add to all of that, I'm keeping my eyes very closely on the big Destination Star Trek convention planned for mid-November in London, which Sue and I are planning on attending. Hopefully all of the craziness will subside and our planned trip can still happen. But of course, the most important thing is everyone's good health and safety, and that will always be the geek's primary concern.
Absolutely. I think that you and Sue are probably in good shape for November.
My only concern is when this starts wrapping up, there might still be that lag of wanting to do things in with big crowds. That's the only thing I'm concerned about.
No, and I get it. I mean, I could see where people would become very phobic of those types of things after a global event like this, because in our lifetimes, we've never seen anything like it. Right. I mean, the Ebola crisis, of 10, 11 years ago, didn't really reach the same proportion. Or same with SARS.
Right.
Certainly it was a big problem, but certainly not to the degree we're seeing with COVID-19. I think if we get to the end of May and there is still this uncertainty and nothing is changing, I don't see STLV happening, because then we'll be at the beginning of June.
Right.
And we're 2 months away from Vegas. I don't see it happening.
And one of the things that I'm concerned about with that is, as I may have said this before on a previous episode, is a lot of the cast members are getting up there in age and they're susceptible to catching this thing. So I think if it gets closer, a lot of the cast members will probably rightfully cancel going because they're concerned for their health, and I certainly can't blame them.
Well, this also means production schedules for shows are going to be set back, so we have no idea when season 4 of Discovery will start, or season 2 of Picard. Sonequa Martin Green is currently pregnant.
Right.
I'm sure that she's not going to want to expose herself to any large crowds if there's still anything lingering. Exactly. So I think if we've seen a significant decline by the end of May, I think STLV could still happen. Right now, I need to believe it's going to happen because it's keeping me sane.
Right.
I'll be honest about that.
Yep.
But
Lord knows I don't keep you sane.
Oh, hell no. God. But as soon as we hear things, we'll certainly let everybody know, both on social media and here on the podcast. So Dan, continuing in news, also season 1 of Picard obviously just wrapped last week. And I think both you and I agree that it was just nothing short of phenomenal. Anyone that may not have CBS All Access now has their chance to see the entire series for free.
For free indeed. This is great news. CBS All Access is offering a free month trial to new and past subscribers to the service. All you need to do is sign up for the service and use the code word GIFT, and you will get 1 month free. And that will include being able to watch all 10 episodes of Star Trek Picard. Now, once the 30-day trial is over, you will start being charged for the service going forward. But believe me, it will be worth it. I mean, really, people right now, they're social distancing. They're staying at home. What better time to catch up on some of your favorite Star Trek series? Because every series is available at CBS All Access, Bill. So great news.
And finally, Dan, as we get used to social distancing in the coronavirus world, there are many good things that have come from it, including a special birthday celebration for Star Trek's favorite counselor.
Yeah, in these uncertain times, Bill, people come together in the best of ways. And Marina Sirtis recently celebrated her birthday, and although many of us are isolated in our homes to prevent the spread of the virus, she was still able to celebrate in style. She posted an incredible image on her Twitter page, which can also be seen over at Camp Kittimer, of a Zoom meeting that she had to celebrate her birthday. With her also was Sir Patrick Stewart, Michael Dorn, Will Wheaton, Jonathan Frakes, LeVar Burton, Brent Spiner, and Gates McFadden, who you might have heard of, any of these people. Gates McFadden, I will say it correctly. The sad thing is this was Marina's first birthday since the sudden loss of her husband, but it was so good to see her Star Trek family was there for her, and she absolutely loved it, saying in her tweet, quote, "I have the best friends in the world. Considering everything, this was the best birthday present. Hashtag TNG rules," end quote. It was an awesome picture.
What an amazing Zoom meeting. None of my Zoom meetings this week have been that awesome. I'm just going to say that right now.
I would not think so.
No.
If you're in it, it's not awesome anyway. But
I'm in a meeting right now with the ugliest person I know.
But it's not Zoom, so we win.
Well, you're the big winner here. Yeah. Congrats. That's funny because Denise Crosby tweeted out today, hey, there was a TNG thing and I wasn't invited.
Oh, well, that's what happens when you leave after the first season.
I was going to say it was the season 2 cast. Oh, wait, season 3 because Gates was there.
Yes. Oh, that's right. Yes. Wow. Ouch.
Yeah, it was. They could say it was the season's 5 cast. When did Will leave?
He was in an episode in season 7, I think, wasn't he?
At least, yeah, he was one.
Mitten Hands was there too, I think.
Mitten Hands. Dan, as always, we are proud and truly honored to have Fansets as our presenting sponsor here on Trek Geeks. Now, more than ever, we're urging all of our listeners to support small business, and Fansets is right at the top of that list. Even in the middle of this pandemic, they are truly hard at work to bring you new and amazing pins for your ever-growing collection.
Yeah, they certainly are, man. As we saw all the great artwork for the first releases of Star Trek Picard Micro Crew pins, just to review, we recently saw Daj, Elnor, Dr. Agnes Girardi, Soji, and 7 of 9. But they were not done. Oh, no. They had a little contest on Twitter over the weekend to get a whole bunch of tweets to release one more design. And we were not disappointed, my friend, as Narek, yes, everyone's favorite Romulan villain, was previewed. They're not done, though, folks, not by a long shot. They've hinted that more previews will be coming in the next week or so keep your eyes peeled on Twitter and Facebook for some additional Picard pins.
They even have an update that was just posted tonight, just before we started recording, to the Fansets blog with all of the pins coming across all of their lines in April, which is fantastic. So everybody should check that out. But also we want everyone to know that with the coronavirus issue still being at the forefront of, well, literally everything, the shipping of Picard, Delta, and Starfleet visitor pins has been slightly delayed. In fact, they were supposed to be dropped off with Fansets tonight after having cleared customs. So they've finally arrived in the United States, and Fansets is going to be hard at work getting those out to everyone who pre-ordered them truly as soon as humanly possible. And while you're waiting for your new Picard swag, because you knew that this had to be coming, go get some more stuff. I mean, because we love Fansets. And if you want to receive an amazing 15% off your entire order at fansets.com, just enter the Trek Geeks exclusive discount code Chakotay. That's Chakotay in all capital letters with no spaces at checkout. That's right. That code is going to get you 15% off everything you're going to get at fansets.com. And this bonus code will be available until Wednesday, April 8th, 2020 at midnight Eastern Daylight Time.
Akuche Moya.
Akuche Moya.
Yes. Fansets. Our pins have character. And we thank our friends at Fansets for being the presenting sponsor of Trek Geeks.
Dan. Wait, wrong segment.
Wow. We just did that.
Well, no, we did the news. We didn't do Dan.
You got corn cobs in your ears, son?
No, I do not. I never start with Dan.
That's true. I appreciate that.
Because it was all about you. Except this segment is all about the character that... Now, you have to refresh my memory because I'm old and I forget things. Didn't he win our first Officer Thunderdome?
He did. He did win it. Yeah. I'm pretty sure. I know you picked him as the number one.
I did.
I don't remember who I picked. I'll have to go back and listen.
Well, but that would mean you'd have to listen to the podcast. And like Chris Mumphrey, you don't listen.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. Yeah, he did well. I know that.
But of course, we were talking about Chakotay.
Akuche Moya.
I'm going to try not to laugh every time we do that. But, as we celebrate or roll on in our celebration of Voyager 25, we thought it would be important to look at this character because I've come to find out, now that I'm a Voyager completist, that there are a lot of people who don't necessarily like Chakotay, and I'm kind of surprised by that. I mean, I didn't really like him, but I hadn't seen the whole show before. Now I actually kind of love the character.
I am in the same boat as you are, man. I did not like him at all at first. I really didn't. And it just seemed to kind of grow. The dislike seemed to grow at first. And we used to make fun of him and call him Commander Mumbles and the Akuche Moya and this, that, and the other thing. But I tell you what, I've gone back to this probably 30 or 40 times in the last couple of years. That rewatch that I did on HNI really opened my eyes to Voyager and really opened my eyes to the character of Chakotay in a way that I never, ever thought possible.
So let's time travel back about 25 years ago when Voyager is first on. We're going to slingshot around the sun. We're going to apply the brakes so we don't go too far. Well done. I'm really impressed.
Thank you.
So the first time you're watching Voyager, whenever that was, whether it was 25 years ago or some point after that, what did you think after the premiere of this character? Were you kind of on board? Were you curious about him? Did you like him at all?
No.
Why?
I didn't like him at all at the beginning. I'm like, okay, this guy's just going to cause nothing but trouble. He's the reason why they're all out here, is what I originally thought. He was in that transport being chased by the Cardassians with Tuvok, and he got zapped into by the Caretaker to the Delta Quadrant. And so I'm like, okay, this is the guy that caused Voyager to have to go out there and look for them. They got sucked into the Delta Quadrant. Now they're stranded, and now he's all of a sudden the first officer? Are you effing kidding me? This is stupid. That's what my initial thoughts were.
Interesting. So you blamed him.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
I'm really kind of, that's the first time I've ever heard anything like that. And it really kind of blows my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So did you have the same feelings, like, say, about Taurus?
No, I don't really think I did. I thought she was interesting. I think I was more stuck on the whole half human, half Klingon part of her than whether or not she was responsible for everything. But he was in command at the time, if I remember correctly. And so he was the one who was being chased. He was a Maquis. He put them in that situation, and they got zappy-wappied over to the Delta Quadrant. And so it was his fault.
Sorry, zappy-wappied?
Zappy-wappy. Yep.
Is that hashtag zappy-wappy?
It could be. It will be. It is.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it is.
It's happening.
Giddy up.
So I was not happy with this guy at the beginning.
It's interesting because when I first saw Caretaker 25 years ago, I thought that this was a character that really was going to be a thorn in everybody's side. That he was going to be somebody that Janeway was going to continually butt heads with until it came to really this sort of boss level conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of dissipated, like within a handful of episodes.
It did. My problem, the thing that I was concerned with as the first few shows went on is he was a Starfleet graduate, and he did well at Starfleet Academy, and then he became a Maquis. So in the eyes of the Federation and of Starfleet, he became a terrorist. He was, for all intents and purposes, a terrorist because of what was going on with the Cardassians and the settlers in the demilitarized zone. And then he becomes first officer, which when I'm like watching this, I'm like, what is she thinking doing this? She wants to have a guy who's Maquis to be her first officer. She's going to get a knife in her back, is kind of what I was thinking. I'm like, this is not going to go well. Then I was concerned about this guy who's going to play both sides of the fence depending on who's around. Is he going to be, rah-rah Starfleet when the Starfleet people are in the room? And is he going to be screw the Federation, screw Starfleet, Maquis, rah-rah-rah when it's just the Maquis people in the room? And I really didn't know how that was going to go. And he kind of did that, I think, a little bit at the beginning.
I have to agree with you. I think the thing that surprised me about the character initially, and I think was the initial turnoff, was that he kind of flipped sides like that, like in an instant.
Yeah.
And if Chakotay is the character of great moral strength, who has this center of these deeply held convictions. I mean, otherwise he wouldn't have become a Maquis because he did it based on principle and not because of the violence. Mm-hmm. Then he might not have done that. When I started rewatching Voyager, I kind of set aside that precept and just sort of enjoyed the show for what it was. I wanted to see what it had to tell me about Star Trek and not really kind of make those critical judgments about the characters. When I stepped away from my own preconceived notion, that's when I really kind of saw the beauty of this character. When did you said it was when you started watching it on H&I. How long ago was that?
It was before we moved down here. So let's see, I've been down in Merrimack for 2 years. So it was probably 4 years ago, maybe okay. 5.
So because during the run of Trek Geeks?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. It's funny. The character really didn't. I mean, this is a stupid thing to say, and it's not going to make any sense. The character didn't change between the time I watched it the first time and the time I watched it 5 years ago. I've changed.
Yes.
And I think that's what makes it so interesting how I've developed the appreciation for Voyager over the last 25 years. It's really something to watch. And this is the second show in a row for Star Trek where we got a crew that was put together that didn't necessarily like each other very much at the beginning. You know, Star Trek, the original series, you definitely had that. TNG, they were all, my God, they were all perfect pretty much right off the bat with each other. DS9 had its issues with the crew members and people that would work together, and then Voyager did. And these people were literally forced into working together. And I think as I've grown older, I realize now that you have to have a person of authority to bring those two different cultures together with an understanding of both cultures. And that's what Chakotay ends up having, which is why I think it ended up working so well.
I've had a lot of time to think about this because you brought up something really important just then. It's the character didn't change, you changed. And I think for me, I went through very much the same thing, but I also think my fandom changed. I think at the time that this came out, I was still kind of mourning the loss of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Mm-hmm. Because by the time it ended, it was very clear to everybody that watched it that it was not only classic, but also iconic. And then it would stand the test of time as good as, if not better than, the original series. Yep. And we were going to get movies every now and then. The series was done. And when it left really on top of its game, despite our feelings about season 7. Mm-hmm. And I think that really kind of colored my perception the first time I watched it. And it was, well, this isn't Next Gen. And it's really kind of weird because the first time I watched Next Gen, it was, well, this isn't Star Trek. This isn't Kirk and Spock.
Yeah, that's right. You did. Yeah, you said that many times.
So I think that having that perception change, sort of that reset in my own mind, has really come to help me especially appreciate Chakotay. Going back to the creation of Voyager itself, apparently he was one of the first characters created for the series, and that really kind of blew my mind. I would have thought it would have been Janeway.
Absolutely. You would think that, up to that point, the captain had been the centerpiece of every show. And so you would think that all of the characters were written around the captain. And it is interesting to hear that you're going to have this commander be the one that was, what do they call it? The character Bible or something like that of what these characters are going to be like. And he was the one that was written first.
It's interesting. If you look at the Memory Alpha entry for Chakotay, this paragraph is really kind of fascinating to me. The Native American character that became Chakotay was one of the first characters devised for Star Trek Voyager. It was inspired by the positive influence that the character of Uhura had on African Americans. Commented executive producer Jerry Taylor, quote, "It seemed to us," meaning herself, Rick Berman, and Michael Piller, the show's creators, "that Native Americans needed the same kind of role model and that same kind of boost. The future looks good. You have purpose. You have worth. You have value. You will be leaders. You will be powerful." That was one character choice we had early on. And that's from, I believe, a book called A Vision of the Future, Star Trek Voyager. It's really kind of fascinating to have that perspective because until I read that, I really never had that sense about Chakotay, but now in hindsight, I can absolutely see it.
It's interesting that you say that because my question to you is going to be, do you think that goal was achieved? And I don't mean to sound negative in any way, shape, or form, but we have heard about how much the character of Uhura helped with the movement back in the 60s.
Yeah.
I don't recall anything with Chakotay's character helping the issues that Native Americans have had to deal with people that came into their land and kicked them out and that kind of thing. Has there been that strong a reaction with the Native American community with the character of Chakotay? That's a question I don't have an answer to.
Neither do I. I'll be the first to say I don't know. Yeah. If I had to take a stab at it, I would say no, it probably doesn't. But maybe it's the kind of thing where it's going to take time to prove that out. I mean, there are still conditions for Native Americans in this country that are far from ideal.
Oh, right.
And the struggle is still very real. And maybe it will take time and perspective. Maybe it is, and maybe we just haven't heard about it, which is entirely possible. But I have to believe that it's not quite the same as far as analogies go.
And I think that the impression and the response that Nichelle had with her character of Uhura was pretty quick. I mean, we had the whole, the story of Dr. King talking to her when she was thinking of leaving the show. That was right then in the 60s, and it seemed to kind of slingshot the whole idea of this diverse crew. It would be interesting to hear from any of our listeners, if they are Native American, if they have had any type of feeling similar to that with the character of Chakotay. I would be very interested in hearing if there are any.
Well, the thing I do appreciate about them constructing this character is that they actually enlisted the assistance of Native Americans to help develop his background. I think that, to me, that was one of the most impressive pieces of all of this. They didn't just go out and try to write to stereotypes or write about what they thought they knew. They actually went to people who would know.
Right.
And these are things that I wish had been talked about more broadly over the years, because I'm just learning this now 25 years in, and I'm sure that a lot of people are learning that for the first time, and I'm sure a bunch more have never heard of it.
Does Robert Beltran have any Native American descent?
I don't know.
I'd be interested in hearing his take on whether he does or doesn't, what it would be like to portray a Native American the way that he did in this show and the importance of that character. I think it would hold much more for him if he does have that descent, but at the same time, if he's representing, I think that's great. I think right now we've gotten a little bit too over the top when people of different descents are playing characters of different descent, and people seem to go flying off the handle about that. I don't know if I would react the same way. That's just me, and I don't mean anything bad by those people having their opinions on it, but I'd be interested to see if Robert Beltran has any of that descent in him, knowing that he was going to be playing such an important character on Voyager.
I looking up at just his biography on the Internet Movie Database, it does say that he is he's the seventh of 10 children of Mexican Native American ancestry. So exactly how much, I'm not entirely certain, or whether he's connected with that portion of it, I'm not really sure. But still.
Yeah. Well,
I think that one of the things that I appreciate the most about Chakotay is probably his his evenness of tone and character. Let's face it, Riker could be a jerk sometimes. He would yell. He would get really stern. His voice would get louder. But Chakotay really tried to keep sort of that even keel. And while dispensing the captain's message, he truly was a Starfleet officer. He treated everybody with respect. He treated everybody with dignity. He talked to them as if they were adults and not necessarily subordinate officers. And I think that's one of the things I really like about him.
I think that it's something I was going to bring up now, but later, but I'll bring it up now. It really seemed that after the whole Maquis thing kind of went away from Voyager, because it did. It kind of tailed off. It didn't last as long as maybe it should have or could have. It pretty much seemed that season 2, maybe midway season 2, season 3, they were all one crew. Everybody was on the same team, and I kind of wondered, okay, now what's he going to be like? Is he, because now he's not having to do that balance. But I'll tell you what. He turned into 100% Starfleet officer and did it the right way. And you're absolutely right. There were times when you knew that you were in trouble with Chakotay by the way that he spoke, but he never did lose the temper or really get out of line that we have seen with other first officers that you might have just mentioned a moment ago.
It's interesting. You brought up a great word, balance. And in looking at the character Bible description for Chakotay, it is truly all about balance. I mean, I hate reading these things verbatim, but I think that this sheds so much light on this character. I'm going to indulge for just another minute. The first officer is a complex, some would say difficult, man. His background is unique. He spans 2 cultures, 1 foot in each, belonging to both and yet to neither. In the 22nd century, a group of Indian traditionalists became dissatisfied with the homogenization of humans that was occurring on Earth. Strongly motivated to preserve their cultural identity, they relocated to a remote planet near what has now become known as the demilitarized zone. Chakotay is a member of that Indian nation, but was always what his people call a contrary. He had a mind of his own, an individualistic rather than communal way of thinking. Though proud of his heritage and his traditions, he was not satisfied to ignore the galaxy around him. A galaxy teeming with diverse life forms and amazing technology. He broke from his people, educated himself in the ways of the 24th century, and attended Starfleet Academy. So this is a character that he's a study in contrasts, and that's what I keep learning about him. And as I think about it in hindsight, the entire series is a study of contrasts with Chakotay.
Okuchimoya. Yes, I think you're absolutely right. And it's amazing to see, and I love the fact that this background of the character was so detailed ahead of time. I'm sure that a lot of shows do this. I'm sure that Picard did it with all the characters and Discovery and probably even DS9. But to see it here and have you read it, to really show the amount of effort that was put into creating these characters before they were even cast or seen or heard, is really a credit to the writing staff.
There's another paragraph in here which is going to sort of segue us into the next phase of the conversation. As a leader, he is steady, fearless, and capable of inspiring absolute devotion. Though he comes onto Voyager more by necessity than choice, he quickly wins the respect of even the most diehard of Starfleet veterans. He strikes an immediate and powerful bond with Janeway, an unusual one with Kim, who, through Chakotay's example, begins to question his own homogenization and the loss of his traditional values. And that takes us to Chakotay as a leader. I think that paragraph is absolutely fascinating because I never thought of absolute devotion before. But his crewmates have that for him. Whether they started as Maquis members or whether they were Starfleet. And if we look at his leadership as a member of the Maquis, it's really important to know that he didn't join for the violence. He didn't join to strike back. He joined because his principal said this is wrong.
And how many other people actually can say that they did the same thing who joined the Maquis? Sure can't say that about Ensign Rowe, I don't think.
Nope.
You can't, I mean...
Not about Cal Hudson either.
No, absolutely not. So I think that those are Starfleet qualities that stayed with him, even though he didn't stay with Starfleet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah.
I think that it's about being true to who he is and honest with who he is. And that's something that's really kind of pervasive all throughout Chakotay in the series. He's not one to just tell you what you want to hear. And he doesn't do it like ever, not even a Seska. He's blatantly honest with her.
Yep.
And especially when she, uses replicator rations to make his favorite soup. you know,
and then she gets like dinged, like a week or something?
Yeah.
Yep.
Or she makes the soup without authorization.
Right.
And she breaks it in the mess hall and then has to give up replicator rations.
Right.
My bad.
Yep.
He is unwaveringly fair. Even at the times where it seems disadvantageous to people, he is that down the middle. And I think that's why I love this character.
And that's a good example what you just talked about, the whole Seska and the replicator thing and using real food. Can you imagine the amount of pressure that this guy must have? On one side, he wants to be the good Starfleet officer and prove to the captain that he can do what he's supposed to do as first officer. But on the other side, he wants to keep those relationships with the people that he was with in the Maquis. Oh my God, the amount of pressure having to do what he needed to do as the ship's first officer must have driven him crazy.
I can't even imagine. Well, even going back to his ship, the Valjean, when he was in the Maquis, a great reference to Victor Hugo's Les Miserables. You figure his crew was him, Tuvok, who turned out to be a spy, Torres, who has blinding devotion to Chakotay for a good reason, Paris at one point, apparently. And it's interesting to think that Chakotay hates Paris. Because I can't imagine, Tom Paris had to be the biggest of a-holes in order for Chakotay to write him off. Let's be honest about that.
Yeah, as well. You know, you don't go to the Botany Bay prison penal colony for nothing, whatever it's called.
Botany Bay. Botany Bay. Oh, no. We've got to get out of here. Hurry.
Very nice.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that it's interesting. One of my favorite lines that Chakotay has, you know, and I'm going to paraphrase it here. He's talking about, you know, was anybody on this ship actually, you know, on my side? Because, you know, when he learns Tuvok was a spy, learns Tom Paris, you know, was dropping dimes on him. I appreciate the humor that Chakotay approaches situations with, even when he could have left that entire scene with just going, man, what was I doing? I am such a terrible judge of people. I should have known. I should have known. And yet, you know, he's able to make really just the sort of slightest offhanded comment that is really kind of meant as a compliment in a way.
You ever think he regretted taking the first officer position, at least in the beginning?
I have to believe at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Yes, because everything was so uncertain.
Yep.
I don't believe that regret lasted very long, though.
No, and again, I say that's due to the fact that they kind of wrote off the whole Maquis storyline fairly quickly.
Yeah.
That could have been something that could have caused a whole lot of consternation throughout the entire series if they wanted it to. I'm glad they didn't, though. I've never been a huge fan of the Maquis storyline, so I was glad to see that they did have it for a little while, even though he is the reason that they all got sent to the Delta Quadrant. But that's for another discussion.
Even though I blame him. I blame you, Chakotay. Let's talk about his leadership qualities as a Starfleet officer.
Okay.
You know, as we've mentioned, you know, he's grown in our estimation to the point where we consider him probably one of the finest first officers that Star Trek has ever shown on screen. And that's really not underselling it. I mean, he executed the captain's vision at times to his own peril.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's interesting to see the way he not only crafted that vision and dispensed it to the crew, but also reported it back up to Janeway. He left nothing but absolute confidence between the two of them. And I think that probably is the most important dynamic on the entire ship.
I think one of the moments that totally points to what you're saying right now is in Scorpion.
Interesting.
He has to say what he feels. It's his responsibility as first officer to tell the captain when he thinks she is wrong. And he tells the whole story about the Scorpion, and it's wrong, Catherine. I mean, he says that right to her face. And I think that's a perfect example of that leadership. He takes it very seriously, and he is going to speak his mind for the benefit of the entire ship, and not just for what the captain wants. And he does a great job of it there. Doesn't listen to him, but he still said what he wanted to say.
Well, and there's yet other times where, and I don't mean to start talking about episodes yet because we're going to do that later, but I have to at this point. But I mean, when you take a look at upholding the ideals of Starfleet, I really can't look any further than Equinox. Janeway is ready to airlock a guy.
Yeah. Yep.
And Chakotay is the only thing standing between that guy and the void of space.
Right.
And he's willing to challenge Janeway to her face and tell her this is wrong and that she can't do it. And it's that moment where you realize he's not just a yes man. You know, I'm sure other people realized this long before I did, but he's not just a guy who's going to tote the water. He's not going to tell the captain what the captain wants to hear. He's going to be the first officer and challenge not only the people that report to him, but even his commanding officer.
Is that the episode where she basically says, "Get out of my way, Commander," and he says no?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, that's a great one. Absolutely. Yeah, he's you know, we didn't see the first officer as a true first officer in the original series. We kind of saw it a little bit in Next Generation where he went on the away missions because the captain was too important to send on away missions. And we really didn't have a first officer of a starship on Deep Space Nine. This is the first Star Trek series, when you really think of it, that has a true first officer in every sense of the word, doing what we think a first officer should do.
Some might say Riker did. And I think to some extent that's true. Not necessarily in the same way.
Right.
Because their styles were very different. But when you want someone that is going to... Riker was handpicked by Picard.
Yeah.
Chakotay was not handpicked. He was the default choice because Janeway's first officer was killed.
Right. I forget even who that was.
Does it matter? I think he barely made 5 minutes in the episode.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a boom.
Yeah.
Thank God he was wearing a red shirt. Hey-oh. But I mean, you know, when we look at examples like that, I mean, at least it seems to me, and this is by no means a criticism of Janeway, because I love Janeway. There are times when Chakotay seems to uphold Starfleet's morals and tenets far better than the captain does, making me wonder why he ever became a Maquis in the first place.
Prime temporal directive, anyone? Temporal prime directive, anyone? Something like that. I'll see. English is hard. Math is easy.
Math is easy.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. It seems to be he knew all the rules and wasn't going to break the rules, while Janeway knew all the rules but was going to bend them as far as she could.
It's really the most interesting comparison and dichotomy, because he came from a role where he was completely against Starfleet and the Federation, and then probably became the most Starfleet and Federation guy on the bridge after maybe close second to Harry Kim, possibly.
But I will say, as you pointed out, I think if there is a weakness to Chakotay, it's what you said. He turned way too quick.
Yeah.
He was that into the Maquis' beliefs and what they wanted to accomplish without the violence, and then he so quickly turned back to be a Starfleet officer and upheld the Federation and Starfleet to a degree that we hadn't seen before. Is that weak writing? Is it they needed to do it quick to get the stories for the rest of the season underway? I don't know, but I would say that would be a demerit on the character of Chakotay.
I have two hypothetical questions for you that literally just popped into my brain. Would Chakotay have worked well with Michael Eddington?
Yeah, I think so.
You think so?
Yep. And until the end, when Eddington showed his true colors.
Until the end, right. Well, I mean, in the Maquis, not in Starfleet.
Yes, I think so. I think he would have. He was very... Eddington was very true to his beliefs. I don't think he was true to the violence aspect either. To a point, at least not as some other Maquis had been. I mean, you saw the reaction when Sisko poisoned the planet. So yeah, I think that as members of the Maquis working together, I think they would have done well together.
Now, let's assume for a minute that Michael Eddington wasn't the undercover guy on Deep Space Nine and that it was Chakotay. Do you think that sort of pursuit of Sisko versus Chakotay gets to the same level? I don't think it does.
I don't think it does either, because I mean, it's kind of hard. Are you saying exactly the same if Chakotay was chief of security on the station for the Federation, everything the same? knowing the characters the way we do, I don't think it would have driven Sisko to the point, if it was Chakotay, that it did with Eddington.
I don't think that Chakotay would have had the outright hatred for Sisko, because that's really what he had at the end, or in the middle anyway, in the middle act. I don't think that he would have driven Sisko to as extreme of measures. That's my belief.
Yeah, I agree with that. I can't put a specific thumb on why, but I do think that's the case.
Well, I think ultimately, although Eddington said it was about principle, for him it wasn't necessarily about principle. It seemed to be about revenge against Sisko to some extent.
Yeah.
Certainly when the chase started, when the whole, to invoke Les Miserables again, when that whole aspect of their dynamic started. So that just popped into my brain. These things kind of happen like that.
In some ways, you're even worse than the Borg. Great line. Different show.
Great line. Great character.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen some crossover between Eddington and Chakotay at some point. It would have been really fascinating.
I'll tell you what, now that you brought up that question of how they would have interacted with each other as members of the Maquis, that would have been awesome to see if it was some kind of flashback episode on Voyager where they were showing things that Chakotay would have done, and they're at some meeting of Maquis cell members and Eddington's, and that they have dialogue together. That would have been fantastic, man.
I almost think that Chakotay would have dealt with Eddington up to a point and then had no use for him, because Eddington's tactics were not the same kind of ones that Chakotay would employ.
Interesting.
That's kind of the way I feel. I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, that's just my gut feeling on it, but that's just the way it strikes me. Because, I mean, Eddington was sort of an at-all-costs kind of guy, and Chakotay was not.
I totally agree with that. Yep. Absolutely.
So, just a slight little diversion there. You all can tell us what you think about that. Hit us up on social media. I'm curious to hear what people think.
Absolutely. So,
in a crew that is stranded so far from home and is theoretically going to be together for about 75 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah. Can you imagine the two of us being together for 75 years? No.
Don't even ever say that again.
It's been 25 so far, and already I want to pull my hair out. You already have.
Funny.
Relationships are key in this kind of situation. You're going to be with these people a long time, perhaps the rest of your life, as far as they know. Mm-hmm. This may be the last family they ever have, which is really kind of sobering to think about.
It's deep.
Well, I mean, if you're on a 75-year journey and you're already in your 30s, I'm just going to say, odds are that's the way it's going to be.
True.
But I think that one of the relationships that, well, not one of, I think the most important relationship that Chakotay has on the ship is absolutely with Captain Janeway. And I don't necessarily mean Captain Janeway.
Without a doubt. Absolutely. It's one of the best relationships we see in Star Trek between officers, and like you said, not Captain Janeway. They have a relationship. It's they care about each other. They love each other. To what level of love you can have discussions on, and I know we're going to talk about episodes, but you can't not talk about a relationship between Chakotay and Catherine and not talk about resolutions when they're on the planet in the Build-A-House. I mean, it's a perfect example of that relationship. It's a fantastic. I love the relationship between these two characters throughout the series, even when they're at odds with each other. It's beautiful.
I'm glad you brought up resolutions, because I think it is among my top 5 episodes of the series, quite frankly. Simply because of, well, for the same reason I like Family in TNG, because it's about the human element. It's not about the science. It's not about the ships. It's not about phasers and photon torpedoes. It's about these people being human with one another and shaking off that rank and learning a new normal.
Right. This is the first time in Star Trek, modern Star Trek, TOS kind of a little bit it happened, but it didn't really happen in TNG. Didn't really happen in Deep Space Nine. How often did you see when we're watching Voyager that when Chakotay and Janeway are talking, he calls her Catherine? When does that and I know people were freaking out with Picard this year, because every once in a while Raffi would call Picard JL. I mean, to me, that just shows the relationship. Whatever your rank is doesn't matter to me. I mean, it's one-on-one, you're in the captain's ready room, you're in the captain's quarters. I thought it was great that they had that type of relationship where he called her Catherine. That's a small thing, but to me, it was a huge thing.
Well, nobody freaked out when Spock called Kirk Jim or Bones called him Jim. Mm-hmm. Nobody freaked out when Jadzia Dax would call Cisco Benjamin.
Yeah, that was the time in Deep Space Nine that happened.
More
of Kira.
No, but I mean, she's a subordinate officer in Starfleet. Mm-hmm. Nobody, even though they had a relationship before when she was Curzon, nobody was up in arms about that.
Right.
And I'm glad that people accepted that relationship between the two of them as being what it was. Somebody who had an infinite respect for somebody else. And I could be talking about either characters interchangeably at that point. Yeah. Because the amount of respect that Janeway shows toward Chakotay, Akuchimoya, is really quite stunning.
I think it would be interesting if that had not happened. Because what kind of relationship do you have when you always have to put rank before everything else? If you're having dinner with your captain and it's just the two of you, it's not a relationship between the two of you. If when you're having a discussion, everything is captain or captain, commander, right. Captain.
Right.
And I'm glad that, you said it a minute ago, they're going to be possibly spending the rest of their lives together. I understand protocol. I understand rank. I understand chain of command, but you said it. This is your family now for possibly the rest of your life. And I like the way that they were able to show Captain Janeway and Chakotay as well.
Kuchimoya.
Don't leave me hanging like that.
Sorry.
That they could have that relationship as well as the job, which included the rank.
It shows to me the respect for people. And, we talk about family when we talk about Star Trek a lot, whether it's in the show or outside the show in fandom. And I really got the sense of that family with Voyager, and it didn't take very long. I understand now the shippers, the people who wish that Janeway and Chakotay got together. And just a couple of weeks ago, we did an episode on Threshold where Janeway got to make hot lizard love with Lizard Tom Paris, and they had lizard babies. And I'm going to say right now, it's a travesty that nothing happened between these two characters to make them question that relationship, because that's just good drama.
Yeah, it absolutely is. No,
I mean, this is the closest it ever gets is with resolutions.
Yep, absolutely. And it's brilliant. And I got to say, I don't want to sound like a pig. I don't want to sound like a jerk, but I'm like, that whole episode, I'm like, they got to get together. They got to get together. It's time. It's right. And they don't. And it's okay. It's okay, but it's not okay.
What's I still have a problem recalling all the Voyager episode titles. I'm gonna explain that up front. But the other episode that really gets to me is the one where Janeway and Chakotay, their shuttle crash lands, and she's essentially dying, and he's got to revive her. That one.
Yeah, I can't remember that one.
That one.
The name of it. It's not. That's not the one I have on my list. That's not Waking Moments. No, I don't think it is. I'll have to check. I'll have to check. I'll have to check. Put that up later.
Well, you check on that. I'm gonna talk about it for a minute.
Okay.
What becomes elemental to me in that sense is Chakotay realizes how crucial and important Janeway is to getting home. Yes, he respects her. Yes, he has an affection for her as a person, but his hope is tied in Janeway's survival. At that point, he needs her. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways I have of that episode. You have the name of the episode right there.
Season 3, episode 15, Coda.
That's right, Coda. Damn it.
Yeah.
I think that's a fantastic episode because you see, Chakotay puts on this great picture of being the prototypical first officer, but he's as invested in Janeway as she is in him. And I think it becomes incredibly apparent in that episode.
There's a lot of that episode that I don't remember at all. And I know we're doing season 3 to see it or skip it pretty soon. So I'm going to have to refresh my memory with that one, because I'm sure I'm going to be looking at this with a fresh set of eyes and I'll be like, wow, this is great. Yeah.
One of the other relationships I think is completely key, and it's probably my favorite, to be honest, is the relationship he has with Taurus. because there is just a blanket understanding that the two of them are going to be as truthful as possible to one another.
Mm-hmm.
And because they have worked together previously.
A little bit.
they worked at a different job before. Because they have that relationship, they've been in close quarters, they've been in combat, they've relied on each other for survival. And I really appreciate that aspect of their relationship, that it's translated so well into Voyager. And I don't know if Chakotay could have been as effective without B'Elanna in that key role, honestly.
Do you really think, though, that you would get any other type of relationship between Chakotay and B'Elanna where she was not 100% honest with him? And wanting to punch him in the face, she would. I mean, just the way that B'Elanna is throughout the series. I think there's an extra level of it with Chakotay, but I would have expected nothing less from her.
I think there are times where she would have maybe been a little more guarded and candid, as she is with Janeway up front, because she's so Starfleet. I think that it allows her some freedom. It allows her to almost a confessional of sorts.
Interesting.
Yeah, because she can go to Chakotay and say, "Dude, can you believe this?"
Yeah,
it's
she did.
Which she has done many times.
Yep.
So I think that's important for him because it gives him the same outlet.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I've seen it from the other side of the coin. The foot's on the other hand now, isn't it?
The foot's. You kill me, David.
That's a great movie.
You kill me.
You think of what it is.
I'm not going to remember. I'm gonna have to Google it.
Airplane.
And I've seen Airplane so many times.
Anyway, it's funny because I remember very vividly the way that B'Elanna would be with Janeway during the first few episodes of Voyager, and how guarded and keeping things close to the vest she was, and the reason for it, and then how she would open up and kind of spill it all out to Chakotay. But then at the same time, when she saw that he was becoming more Starfleet again, I think she kind of reeled it in a little bit.
I agree with you 100%.
Okay.
I think that's a great observation. Well, look at us. We're being all positive today.
Gosh. Wow.
I know. Stop it.
That's going to end probably.
It's got to end. I can't deal with this. Chakotay.
Kuchimoya.
Also, I mean, if you look at the relationship we had with Tom Paris, since we're talking about B'Elanna, you can't really talk about B'Elanna without invoking Paris at some point. Mm-hmm. I find that their relationship probably got a little too chummy too soon. You figure in the pilot, I mean, they're not, I think they both want to kill each other until the whole thing with the falling stairs. And Paris gets saved. It is Paris that gets saved, right?
Correct.
And after that, it's like, oh, well, he must not be a bad guy after all. That to me is really the only forced relationship at the beginning of Voyager. I think it's a little unnatural. I like where it goes. I like that there's still a little bit of tension between them after that, but I think that it wasn't necessarily realistic to me that they got along that quickly.
You know, this is going to sound really weird. I'm sitting here listening to you, and I'm thinking of episodes from the first season. I don't remember their relationship very much at all. And maybe it's because I didn't think they had one, and I wasn't looking for it. I do remember during the whole episodes where Paris was pretending that he was being a jerk and was showing up late. I thought that the relationship the two had there with the headbutting was fantastic.
I did too.
But then you find out that it was all staged. And it was kind of like, aw. But other than that, I don't have a whole lot of comment on the relationship because I really never felt it. Isn't that weird?
I don't think it's weird. I mean, you can infer a lot of things. I mean, Chakotay doesn't usually call him Paris. He calls him Tom, which indicates a familiarity.
Yeah.
I mean, that seemed to happen all over the Voyager bridge. It's like on occasion they'd use rank, but Chakotay more often than not would go, Tom, take us to Warp 9, whatever.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Was that to me or? No. That probably was the relationship I thought that was the most kludgy at the beginning. However, I have to say I do like the way that Chakotay and Tuvok interacted across the entire whole of the series. And I think that there was great respect between the two of them despite the rough start they got off to.
It could have been a horrible relationship the whole time based on the fact that Tuvok was a spy in his Maquis cell. And that could have gone very badly. But I think that level of respect was held by both of them, which is interesting that a Vulcan would respect Chakotay as much as he did with the fact that he was with what was deemed a terrorist organization.
Absolutely. So let's talk about some episodes, since we're kind of drawing to a close on our look at Chakotay. I know you've listed a few that you absolutely like as far as Chakotay episodes. Mm-hmm. We've talked about Resolutions a little bit. What other ones did you want to enter into the record?
Well, Resolutions definitely is I think the one that I put right up there. I think Shattered is a really good one also. It's a good. It's got a lot of aspects to the episode itself, but I like the Chakotay portions of that episode. One of my favorites, though, has got to be Worst Case Scenario, which we talked about.
Oh, yeah.
So being able to be that mutineer, I think, was really great. Now, of course, it was all just a hollow novel, and so it wasn't really the true Chakotay, but it let Robert Beltran come out of his shell a little bit and really have a lot of fun with the character, and I think he did a great job with it. And this might come out as a little weird for you, man, but I'm going to throw Timeless in there. Of course, that's definitely a Harry Kim story, but I think the relationship that we see that Chakotay has with Kim during that episode really shows a lot of the character, and he was willing to die to help Harry set things right. And I thought that was really something that stood out to me. Interesting.
I hadn't thought about that, but when you put it in that framing, I have to agree with you 100%. I want to add to that Workforce, because I really like the way that Chakotay is written into Workforce. He's sort of the center. Mm-hmm. You know, he's the guy who knows what's going on and has to infiltrate and bring everybody back home, if you will. And I really love what they give him to do in that episode. I don't think it works with any other character. Honestly, if you could put Tuvok in that role, I don't think it's the same.
I totally agree with you, and I think that it's real. Now, are you talking about the entire 2-part episode, or just one specific part 1 or part 2?
No, really the whole 2-parter.
Okay, yep, no, that's cool. You can also throw the same. You know, I was talking about how Worst Case Scenario is kind of a hologram. I kind of like how he is in Killing Game, also, even though he's just a soldier. I mean, it's kind of not. It's not really talking about the character of Chakotay and episodes that stand out for Chakotay. It's just fun one. It's a fun one for me, for him.
There are a bunch of episodes like that, though. I mean, what's the one where he's on the Kazon ship? You know, your favorite race, the Kazon, and Aaron Eisenberg is in the episode.
Initiations.
Yeah, that's a fantastic episode.
I actually wrote that. I actually have that in my list, but I forgot to mention it. There you go. You can prove it. Just look at the notes. It's right there, pal.
Well, you see, I forgot the name of the episode. It is right there. I steered you toward it without even realizing.
See, you helping steer the ship. Good job, Captain.
Thank you, Ensign. What is it about that episode that particularly stands out to you?
I like the way he stands up to the kid.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I can't remember Aaron's character name in that episode, but at the same time, he stands up to him, but at the same time, he really wants him to succeed, even though he really can't show it, kind of. And I'm pretty much, I mean, it's Chakotay in this episode. This is kind of he's not the only character you see, but this is a quote Chakotay episode. Right. And it really stands out well. And I think that, of course, the job that Aaron did in this is fantastic as well. And the two worked very well together.
There's one relationship that I meant to bring up that I forgot, and that's the one with Seska.
Oh my God.
Martha Hackett is so freaking amazing as Seska. I love the doubt that she is able to place in Chakotay with just a sentence.
Yeah.
And where he has to essentially say, yeah, by the way, I know you're a spy. That episode is it's gut-wrenching, because you know that he's got feelings for Seska.
Yep.
That's just
be a father.
Oh God. Surprise. And then if there's one other episode I know that you absolutely love about Chakotay, it's got to be the fight.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to leave now.
Hey, every character has an episode that is not fantastic. And I think that's probably the Chakotay episode in that category.
I don't know you want to talk. I'm not even talking about it. Just move along. You know what you never mentioned, though?
What's up?
And maybe you were saving it, and I'm gonna,
Step on my toes, shatter?
Step on your toes. The relationship with Seven. Yeah, you brought up the fight. I'm bringing up the relationship with Seven.
I could see if they had bothered to introduce that in an earlier season.
Yes,
I'd buy it.
Yeah.
But the fact that they waited until the last episode,
right,
really made no sense to me.
Did they have the picnic? Was that the last episode?
Yeah.
Was that before? Oh, okay, it was. Okay, yeah. I'm thinking the picnic was the start of it, but that was the last episode. So,
At least I'm pretty sure it was. I mean,
I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah.
I think they attempted to plant some seeds for it.
Yeah.
With some of their conversations, but it just no.
Yeah. No. I think they did it in the last episode because they needed something to really force part of the reason why Janeway was doing what she did.
Yeah.
And so they made, let's make sure that they had a relationship, and then she can do it for her and Seven and blah, 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 blah. So yeah.
Well, Dan, parting thoughts as we close our conversation on this most Starfleet of first officers.
One of the things that I love so much about the fact that, as I said earlier, now that I'm older and have a different viewpoint of things, I can really go back and enjoy these episodes like I think they were meant to be enjoyed 25 years ago. These characters have really taken a different tone with these characters, and I think that Chakotay is the one that I've taken the greatest tone change with. Didn't like him at first at all, couldn't stand him, blamed him for everything, thought he was a jerk, he was going to turn on Janeway, and now we're sitting here talking about he's probably the finest first officer we've seen in any Star Trek series. That's quite a change.
Yeah.
And I really am glad that I've been able to have that rewatch and subsequent watches of different episodes over the course of the last few years to fully appreciate it. And, I think part of the reason, I meant to talk about this earlier, so I'm going to bring it up now. I think maybe part of the reason that I had a problem with Chakotay at first was I thought I read or heard a rumor that Beltran didn't like playing the character. I don't think that's true, but that shouldn't have been a reason for me not to dislike the character. I totally think now, as we've watched him talk about things, especially now that the 25th anniversary is around, he's fully engaged in talking about Chakotay. He loved it. He loved his time on the show. And I'm sorry that if that is something that made me dislike him at first, that I let that happen.
Well, I think he had frustrations with the writing. But we've had that as fans.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But I think he was certainly more a part of that simply because he was working on the show. I think at times that left to him resenting Voyager and Star Trek.
Okay.
But I could understand that. I mean, I can't fault him for that. But I mean, I look at what he does today, and I mean, the dude got his face painted like Chakotay at STLV a couple of years ago and did photo ops. I mean,
that's awesome.
I'm willing to bet he's reconciled a lot of that.
I think so.
And if he can leave it behind, then I can too.
And that's something that I'm looking forward to, hoping we can go to conventions again someday, is being able to meet some of these people that I never had thought of having a photo op or an autograph with. And he's one of them.
Yeah.
I never really thought about it before, but, especially researching for this episode and watching the HNI rewatch, I got a lot of love for the Voyager characters, and I can't wait to take advantage of it at some of these conventions coming up during the 25th anniversary celebration.
You and me both, man. You and me both. Well, Dan, as we're coochie moyaing all over the place today, we should at least throw one of those out to 5-Year Mission, because they are amazing and we love them. So this past weekend, they did their Quarren stream, which they were going to perform live at Mike Rittenhouse's comic shop in Indianapolis, Hero House Comics. By the way, if you're looking for comics, talk to Mike. Mike's amazing. But when everybody got their stay-at-home orders, they essentially attended this Zoom webinar that we put together for them and played from their own houses individually, acoustically, it was a great night. They were able to raise over $1,100 for both the World Health Organization and for a local food pantry in the Indianapolis area, all thanks to people just requesting songs. So kudos to them for the amazing job they did raising money for 2 great organizations. And of course, we thank them for all of the music they let us use here across the Trek Geeks Network. And honestly, just for being amazing guys. Head on out to 5yearmission.net, get all their albums in your hands, and then go download their podcast, because that's amazing. And well, we can't thank him enough, Dan.
So you threw out a special Akuche Moya just to the boys.
Why wouldn't I? I'm the 6th member of 5-Year Mission.
Shouldn't it be Farkuche Moya? I know we've used it before, but it just kind of makes sense right now, doesn't it? Could the episode anyway?
I need to prepare for this. Hold on 1 second.
Okay, sorry.
Me.
Here we go.
Farkuche Moya.
Oh, that's beautiful.
How was that?
Beautiful.
That was justified.
I got a tear in my eye, and it's not because it was just an awesome Farkism, but because you did it so well.
Thank you.
Speaking of Farkisms, Bill.
Oh, man.
I got to say, congratulations, Captain Sisko. Newly promoted and hosting Ambassador Noah. Yes, there's a possible coup taking place on the Zenkathi homeworld, however, and the Defiant is ordered to check into it. Musicians are just going rampant all over the planet, we're told. But is it real, Bill? Or is it all some elaborate plan of the founders to start a war under false pretenses? And really, is Bashir a changeling imposter? Or is it someone we least expect? Watch it. Before it's too late. They are everywhere. Yes, it's the incredible Season 3 finale, The Adversary. Bill? Hello?
Really?
I didn't mean to hurt you. Quark.
You hurt me every week. You do a Farkism, quite frankly. It's like you stab me in the heart with an ice pick.
Ow. Ooh.
Yeah.
Huh.
I wish you'd stab me in the eardrum so I didn't have to hear these anymore.
I like that one. It's good. It's a good episode.
I've recently given thought to trying to puncture my own eardrums.
It makes sense, though. You know.
What does?
The adversary.
When
he's a bad guy.
Anything you've ever said made sense?
Sure, I'll do a podcast with you.
Yeah. Let's be honest. How much cajoling did that take?
I can't even breathe.
Oh, that's like the day I've dreamed for.
Anyway.
That's 5yearmission.net. Please go buy all their CDs and become huge fans as we have ourselves. Dan, of course, don't forget, you can support the Trek Geeks Network by subscribing to exclusive bonus content via Patreon. You can check out our new t-shirt and pin designs for 2020 and even get raw, unedited audio of all of our podcasts, along with some other perks.
Lots of perks. But right now we want to take a moment to thank our associate producers for Trek Geeks. We are so grateful for their support. Thank you, Adam Sanders, Brandon Everidge, Heather Sohn, John Krikorian, Rick Tatro, Trey Womack, Sean Lynn, Tim Robertson, Tim Serdar, Vikram Bhatt, Greg Rozier, Andy Fark, Kimberly Francis, Ron Robel, Brooke Horton, Christina Werther, Jim McMahon, Luke Burnham, Eric Sakian, Lisa Tomlinson, Jamie McGregor, and the glorious and wonderful Conrad Hutchins.
That never gets old for me.
Nope. That's why I'm going to do it.
And Conrad truly is gracious and wonderful. I mean,
he is very.
He's probably one of the nicest people we've ever met.
Yep.
I mean, everyone's great, but Conrad is just so fantastic.
He is.
Unlike you, because you're kind of a schmuck. We also want to thank our Trek Geeks producers for their support. They are Ken Tripp, Casey Shafsky, Charlie Mulvey, Chris Trebuzio, Craig Ewing, Eric Extreme, Jackie and Chris Hackney, Leonel Marchand, Matt McGonigal, Mike Bovia, Patrick Escudero, Sean O'Halloran, Peter Craig, Ken Bird, Jamie Rogers, David Hood, Rachel Delaney, and the lovely and talented Jess Vashon.
You too can become a producer on the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. Head on over to patreon.com/Trek Geeks today. Dan,
next week, I had another crazy idea, and as a result, we're going to be doing something we've truly never done before.
Yeah. Indeed we are, man. Next week, we're bringing back our popular Say Something Nice series, but there's a catch. Yeah, we need your help, people. So that means we are going to do it live. That's right. Tuesday, April 7th, 2020 on our Facebook and YouTube pages. You'll get to say something nice with us next week. You got it. On Trek Geeks, the flagship podcast network for your fandom.
That'll be live streaming on both our Facebook page at facebook.com/TrekGeeks and our YouTube page at youtube.com/TrekGeeks. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, or whatever the heck time it is in your particular time zone. That's next week on an all-new Trek Geeks. Of course, for more great Star Trek discussion, please check out the other member podcasts of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. Everybody is out there putting out some great content to help get us through these days. And I'm listening to every last hour of it, and I know Dan is too. And of course, for more great Star Trek discussion, please visit our great friends at treknews.net. For now, this has been episode number 212 of the Trek Geeks Podcast. We hope you all stay safe, sane, live long and prosper.
A coochie coconut. Am I right?
That actually might be the best coconut you've ever done. I wish a Farkism could chart like that.
Oh.
Music for Trek Geeks is provided by 5 Year Mission. They are writing one song for each episode of the original series. Download their music at 5yearmission.net. Trek Geeks, a Star Trek podcast, is a production of Coconut Media Works, executive producer Bill Smith. For even more Star Trek discussion, check out Discovering Trek, a Star Trek Discovery companion, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and discoveringtrek.com.
Bing bong.
Yeah? Well, bing bong. To you, sir.
Thank you for using sir. I'm glad you recognized that I'm higher than you on the org chart. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I love this.
Mr. Executive Producer, sir.
Whatever the title is. It's like, in a way, you're kind of like Dwight Schrute in The Office.
Wow.
You're not assistant regional manager. You're assistant to the regional manager.
No, assistant manager.
No, assistant to the regional manager.
See, I actually get that now because I've been watching The Office.
How many episodes? No, if you haven't seen more than a dozen episodes, you're not watching The
I'm in
Office.
season 2.
How deep?
Like 3 episodes, I think.
So you've seen 9.
There's only 6 episodes in the first season?
There are.
That's horrible.
It was a mid-season replacement.
Wow. Okay. Well, I guess. All right. Whatever.
So you're where you were the last time I asked you about The Office.
I haven't watched it in a couple weeks, yeah. Yep.
So let's get going.
All right.
It's a friggin' quarantine. You got nothing to do.
I think one of my favorite ones so far of the whole 9 that I watched is the basketball one.
Oh, my God. That one is so funny.
So funny. It is so uncomfortable to watch Steve Carell's character because he is so awful.
But he's so brilliant.
He is, but it's like, oh my God, how can he say that?
Can you picture anybody else playing that part?
No.
I mean, people talk about the UK version and Ricky Gervais, but the US version of The Office is so different.
Yeah. And
Michael Scott is certainly not David Brent, the UK character. I can't picture anybody else on the planet playing Michael Scott because Steve Carell is just, he's irreplaceable.
Yeah.
That's why the show changed when he left.
Yeah. And what season was that?
He left at the end of season 7.
Okay. All right. So I got him for a while then.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool.
There are some good episodes in seasons 8 and 9. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
But it's not the same dynamic.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind. We're going to The Office. We'll throw a little Big Bang into that too at the same time. So.
Yeah. What are we watching right now? We're watching SEAL Team on CBS All Access.
Oh.
Not those SEALs.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
I was very skeptical at first. Mm-hmm. I am really amazed at how well that show is put together.
Oh, well,
I'm all in.
Okay. All right. It's good to know.
It's got David Boreanaz from Angel and Bones.
Yep.
That was on Fox for do you know Bones ran on Fox for 10 years?
Yeah, it was a long time.
I had no idea. I never watched it.
Yeah, I never did either. But I always the girl always looked very intense.
Yes.
Like she was just about to like either kill somebody or solve the mystery. One or the other, I couldn't tell.
Kind of like me anytime we record Trek Geeks.
Exactly. Yep.
So last night I approached you with an idea.
You did.
And as usual, I'm sure you thought the idea was crazy.
No, actually I didn't, because now with Picard live and how successful that's been and how great you have become behind the scenes and Dan Garcia, it makes perfect sense, man. I thought it was a great idea.
So next Tuesday night, that's April 1st, 2020, at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, you and I are going to record episode 213 of Trek Geeks live.
Well, that would be April 8th?
No,
yes.
Today's the 31st.
Yeah.
It'd be April 7th?
Tomorrow's the 1st, so it'll be April 8th. Yeah.
No, we're recording Tuesday, April 7th.
We're going to do it Tuesday. Okay, Tuesday, April 7th. Okay. All right. Math is so not hard, but knowing what day of the week is sucks.
It is a 31-day month this month. And I think right now it's March 97th. Because that's what it feels like. So,
exactly, it does. So, I'm excited.
So Tuesday, April 7th.
7th?
At 8 p.m. Eastern, we will be live on our Facebook and YouTube pages recording episode number 213 live. So it's going to be pretty fun.
I'm looking forward to it. You know why? Because we get to say something nice.
That's it. I figured what kind of episode would fit a live show where we get feedback on the fly. And I figured say something nice is perfect for that because people can either agree with us or disagree with us or say their own nice things in comments and we can bring those up and talk about them. So it's the live audience is the third guest.
We're going to have like a live audience laugh track? That wouldn't be a live audience then, would it?
That wouldn't be.
No, sorry.
This episode of Trek Geeks is filmed before a live studio audience.
Sorry.
We should just play the bit that they played at the beginning of Happy Days or Laverne and Shirley that says that.
It's exactly the two shows I think of in Three's Company, those three shows.
Maybe we just play that drop live.
I like that.
Right after the
actually,
coconut.
You know what? They didn't say that at Three's Company, did they? No, they said it only on Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley. You're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah. Okay.
And Mork and Mindy too, I think. Because that was also a Gary Marshall show.
I never really got into that, although Pam Dauber's character did drive a Jeep and they were in Colorado, so that they had that going for them, which is nice.
In Boulder.
Yes. Yep.
Which is, that's not bad.
It's a place beautiful for an alien to land. It should be Boulder, Colorado. That's what I'm thinking. After Milwaukee or wherever the hell Happy Days was.
Yeah, he got an upgrade from Milwaukee to Boulder. I'm going to say that right there.
Yeah. And his roommate is pretty much an upgrade from Richie Cunningham.
That's very true.
Yeah. So.
I thought that was the weirdest episode of Happy Days. It didn't fit to have Mork on Happy Days.
But you know what? That episode, I got to say, and from what I remember of it, was better than any of the Mork and Mindy show.
Yes. Oh, I agreed 100%.
Yep.
Wow, we're just all kinds of hot takes here on the Trek Geeks Outtake.
You get the Fonz getting frozen. He's a mop. And frozen. Just frozen.
I love how the Nanu is essentially live long and prosper on its side.
Right. Except you don't shake hands like that.
Nanu.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wow. So that's
and Mork's costume was Colonel Green's costume. From Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
Like the actual costume, which people didn't stop to realize. Those of us who watched it live realized it.
There you go. We were alive back then watching it.
We were very young.
Not the Star Trek episode, but the Mork and Mindy Fonz Happy Days episode. I don't even know if there was a title to episodes of shows back then, but it was probably called the Mork episode. Or Mork from Mork, or I don't know.
I can't even really give you a whole bunch of crap because I haven't seen you.
Right. But isn't it weird how episodes, they don't even show the title like on Discovery and on Picard. They don't even show the episode titles anymore. Right. And then you had like Friends where it was always the one about or the one with. They all started with the one blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And now that I really will say that's something I miss. I like seeing the titles in the opening scenes of the Star Trek shows, and they don't do it anymore.
Do you miss the captain's log, even though Michael Chabon says it's extraneous information that means nothing?
I don't think I'd miss it. No. I will say that I'm glad that they've kind of gotten rid of star dates, at least in Picard, because they were completely all over the chart back in the day. I like how they would have in Picard, and this isn't giving spoilers away, when they would show different times, they would just show so many years ago or the planet name and something. I thought that was pretty cool. I did like that. I appreciated that.
My belief is that the captain's log was relied on too heavily in the tail end of Berman Trek to explain things that happened off screen just so they didn't have to film it for the screen.
Captain's log supplemental.
Well, this happened a lot in Voyager.
Yeah.
This happened a lot in Enterprise. It happened toward the tail end of Next Gen and Deep Space Nine. Mm-hmm. But if it happens on the screen, you don't have to have a narrative to explain what happened and why.
Right.
Were there times they could have used it? Possibly. But I don't think it took away from Star Trek Picard or Star Trek Discovery, quite frankly.
There was one aspect of Star Trek Picard that drove my wife crazy in one episode, and I don't want to get into the details, but it was he gave a briefing to someone off screen. And the scene started with that person saying, "That's quite a briefing you've given," and didn't really expand on what that briefing was, and that bothers Sue a lot.
I'm trying to remember the episode.
I don't want to say, because we don't want to give spoilers away here on Trek Geeks.
That's true.
Yeah. So people who haven't seen it, watch Picard, and then you can ask me. And if you haven't seen Picard, what is wrong with you?
Watch it. So I have heard from people that had not watched it from the beginning, and with the free month that CBL Access was giving away, considering that we're all sort of shut in for a while, they decided to dial it up and watch Picard, and they have loved it. And these are people who loved TNG previously or liked TNG previously.
Yeah.
And they thought it was amazing. So, I mean, this series is speaking to people that have watched Star Trek before, and I think that's what's important.
I think it's great. We're going to do an episode soon about Picard season 1
2 weeks.
in a couple weeks, and we will have spoilers in that one. But I can't wait to talk about it because this was unlike anything I expected, and it may be my favorite first season of any show ever.
I'll agree to that.
Yeah, so I can't wait to talk about it.
The level of emotion in season 1, I was not prepared for.
No.
There were times where I found myself, having tears in my eyes, and I was not expecting it from Star Trek. And with, well, people joke that Michael Burnham cries all the time in season 2. I felt like Michael Burnham watching Star Trek Picard.
Yep. There were aspects of it, especially on the finale, that I was not prepared for. And totally just, I was struggling, as Joe Namath likes to say, to hold it together because we were watching with a bunch of people.
I don't care about the team struggling. I want to kiss you.
I want to kiss you.
Poor Susie Kolber.
Oh my God. That was during a Patriots game.
It was. Even at the premiere in Hollywood, there were times where I was just welling up with tears in those first 3 episodes because you realized what was on the line and what it meant for Picard.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that in 2 weeks after we do the impromptu Trek Geeks live stream of Say Something Nice next week.
Coming up next week, it's Trek Geeks Live.
Well, we'll call it live stream to differentiate from the live show in Concord, New Hampshire on October 25th.
Wow, okay. Coming next week, it's Trek Geeks Live Stream. Excellent.
I wish people could see the face you just made.
That was pretty good, wasn't it?
It was.
I like that. Anyway, yeah.
All right, Jerk, you ready to do this?
Let's do it, man.
No. No, you didn't say Chakotay.
Oh, sorry.
Say the word.
Chakotay.
Akuchimoya. See, that's how that should work this whole episode.
Okay, that it's going to happen.
All right.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Coconut.